Good evening and welcome back to the Hall of Fame. We're just thrilled to be able to re-celebrate the induction of several of you on your anniversary class years into the South Dakota Hall of Fame. I think I know most of you, but for those I don't, I'm Marcy Christensen-Burdick, and I currently serve as chair of the Hall of Fame board. I know I can speak for the entire board when I say how happy we are to do the work to help preserve the legacies of you and your loved ones for the future in the Hall of Fame. Our purpose tonight is that we want to not only re-celebrate you, remind the group about who's on the call with a little about each of you, but we also want to update you on what's going on at the Hall with your legacies and what our work is to preserve your stories in South Dakota history. And just an aside, we always, as most of you know, did this anniversary reunion in Chamberlain in connection with the induction, the inductee class. During COVID, we started Zooming these events. And we got such positive feedback that we've continued to Zoom the anniversary reunion, although we will also be doing it in person in Chamberlain this September with the latest induction class. So if you can happen to be with us there too, we'd love to see you again, but we're glad you're with us tonight. Let me kind of stage set and introduce some of the people on the Zoom tonight, the Zoom call, I still want to call it. First of all, the people who really do the heavy work to support the mission of the South Dakota Hall of Fame. Many of you know our new CEO, Lori Beckvar, who you will hear from in just a minute. I'll ask Lori to wave there. She's going to have some comments and thoughts at the end of the hour. Our programming manager is Lori Platzer. Lori, would you wave? Lori is really your prime contact. If you have an interest in updating your Hall of Fame page, adding to your legacy page, Lori is your point of contact and can help you through that. And then although not an employee, we sure consider her one, Kelsey Stein, who is the president of Vela Creative in Rapid City and works with us on our marketing and is joining us today, and we're glad to have her. We also have several members of the Hall of Fame board that I'd like to introduce you to. Jerry Lickness of Watertown, I see is there. Jerry is really instrumental with the auction we do and part of our fundraising. Dr. Lauren Cheddar is the head of our fundraising committee, is also an inductee into the Hall of Fame. Dave Rosenboom, I see from Sioux Falls and First Premier Bank is with us on our board, and Leslie Hagel. We see Leslie's cute, is that your daughter there that we see? Leslie is the daughter of inductee Craig Teason, who was inducted last year. I don't think I've missed any other board members, have I? Doesn't look like it. Okay. So thanks to the board for everything they do for the Hall of Fame. Now just a quick outline of how we're going to do this program. I'm going to start with the 5-year reunion class, and then we'll progress to the 35-year reunion class. I'll introduce each inductee or their representative who's on the call, and I'll tell you just a little bit of information about their illustrious history. Those of you who are adept with Zoom, while we're talking about the individual inductees, if you wouldn't mind turning off your cameras, that will help us focus on that one person. Don't worry about when you need to be on and off. I'll talk you through it, and we're informal here, so don't worry about it. You know, I will tell you that you guys are also accomplished. There's no way we can read everything about you or we would be here all night. So I have brief introductions. I would encourage you to look at everybody's inductee legacy page to learn more about them. And because in some cases, we don't know a lot about what's happened with your life since the induction, your induction or that of your loved one. At the end of my introduction of you, I'll just ask you to say a couple words to bring us up to speed, if you would. So again, as we progress tonight, if you have any thoughts or comments or questions you'd like to ask a fellow inductee, go ahead and send us a little message in the chat function. And at the end, we have reserved time because we'd love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts or suggestions for the Hall of Fame staff and we on the board, and things we might be thinking about to do differently for the future. So that's, if there aren't any quick questions, I'll go ahead and start the anniversary reunion meetup. And we'll start with the class of 2017 and our 5-year reunion class. And I'm going to check first to see if Jeff Scherschlick is on the call and was able to join us. Jeff, are you there? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go by Jeff. And if he joins us, we'll come back to him. What about former Governor Woolman? All right, looks like he hasn't been able to join us either. And in fairness, both of these folks were tentative. So if they do join later in the program, we'll come back. But for now, we'll move on to the 10-year anniversary group. That's the class of 2012. And Jean Lebrun, I'm going to start with you. If you'd go ahead and turn your camera back on while I'm telling the group a little about you. Jean Lebrun of Rapid City Now was born on a farm in North Dakota, became a South Dakotan by choice after graduating from law school and joining a firm that is now known as Lynn, Jackson, Schultz, and Lebrun. Jean has concentrated his area of practice in generally business affairs, but has also been very active in public service. Governor Knipe appointed Jean to the Uniform Laws Commission in 1976, and he served as a commissioner from South Dakota for years, also serving as president of the organization. Jean was elected to the South Dakota House in 1970. He and several others were the first Democrats to be elected from Pennington County in over 30 years. And after his reelection in 1972, he was elected by his peers as Speaker of the House. At age 34, he was one of the youngest speakers in the country. As part of this new technology called the internet, a commission was formed called the Internet Tax Freedom Act, actually a law passed by the United States Congress in 1998. And Jean was appointed by then Senator Tom Daschle as to an advisory commission on electronic commerce. He has since become recognized nationally and internationally on matters of internet taxation. Jean's other half, his wife, Pat, joined him in the Hall of Fame the year after Jean's induction. Jean, we're so happy to see you. Maybe you could bring us up to speed on what's been going on with you since your induction.
Well, thanks much. Thanks for those kind words. Well, we sold our home and moved into a retirement community in 2013, and I continued to practice law. Then in 2019, I completely retired from the law practice. Since then, we did a lot of traveling, except after the pandemic hit, we couldn't travel that much. But because we've got one son and family lives in Tokyo, we've been to Tokyo 18 times over the last 20 years or better. So we have not been able to go there the last few years because of the pandemic. Unfortunately, our son and his family have a home in the Black Hills as well, so we get to see them at least once a year. Other son lives in Washington, D.C. We go there at least once a year, so that's always a thrill. I'm still very active in the Uniform Laws Conference. I just came back from my 45th consecutive annual meeting. This one was held in Philadelphia. It's a full in-person meeting this time. Last year was kind of a hybrid, some in person, some by Zoom. And the year before that, because of the pandemic, we did not have a meeting at all. But that's really been the focus of my life for 45 years now, and it's a great organization, made great friends. The only problem with our meeting this year, because so many of us had not seen each other for a long time, we did a lot of socializing. Well, unfortunately, of the 300 and some people there, about 15% tested positive to the virus after it was all over, including Pat and me. But it didn't last long. We're feeling fine now. We're now negative and just having a great time. I stay active with the Uniform Laws. I stay active as a political contributor now. I do a lot of reading. My favorite read are presidential biographies. I have a library consisting of 2 or more biographies of every U.S. president, and I truly enjoy reading them all. Life is good. We continue to be relatively healthy. We love our time here in Rapid City. And we always enjoy seeing friends at the uniform at the Hall of Fame. So thanks, Marcia.
Well, thank you, Gene. Thanks for all you've done for the state of South Dakota over the years, and it's really good to see you tonight. So I'll move on to your fellow inductee and one of my former board members on the Hall of Fame, Mary Olinger. Mary's life has literally been dedicated to service and giving back to others. Hello, Mary. After a long career as an executive assistant in various businesses and the medical field, Mary was named president and CEO of Make-A-Wish South Dakota in 1993. That organization was struggling, and Mary used her business savvy and her people skills to bring new dollars and new volunteers into that organization across the state. More than 800 wishes were granted to medically fragile children in South Dakota during Mary's nearly 2 decades of leadership. Financial donations to Make-A-Wish grew by nearly 900%. And when Mary retired in 2011, the South Dakota chapter was celebrating its 2nd consecutive year as one of the top 5 chapters in the United States. And here's a fun fact about Mary. Mary is also in the South Dakota Softball Hall of Fame, winning 7 titles in 7 years as a coach. Mary, I know you have not been sitting around eating bonbons since your induction into the Hall of Fame. Tell us what's been keeping you busy.
Well, I haven't been eating bonbons, but I haven't lost any weight. And I will tell you that 10 years have gone by and I'm still in shock being inducted into the Hall of Fame, but I am absolutely thrilled what's happened with the organization. We've had great leadership. We've raised a lot of money. I served 6 years on the board of directors, and it was a great 6 years in my life. I'm still spending my time. Guess what? Next week, I'm going to be at the airport meeting a child, sending them on their wish to Disney World at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I still spend my time fundraising. I'm working with Lifescape in a statewide organization, and we're trying to raise enough money to build a new building for the kids that are and adults that are mentally challenged. And I'm also working with Ronald McDonald House. I've just recently been involved with Alvera. They added on to the Walsh Family Village, and it's now called the Kirby Village. And let's see, I'm trying to think of what else I'm doing. And I do stay kind of busy. I guess I firmly believe God put us here to serve, and I'm happy to help out everybody that needs any help. And I have to share that fundraising is kind of in my heart. And I had my first $1 million day here about 2 months ago, where one donated $1 million to Lifescape. So that gave me goosebumps, to put it bluntly. It was absolutely fabulous. And I hope somebody can do that to the Hall of Fame. I hope somebody can do that to Lifescape. My life is good. I'm oldest of 102, originally from Emory, South Dakota, and 103 is on the way. And I'm happy I've lived this long. Thanks for everything, you guys.
Oh, Mary, thank you. So good to see you, and look forward, hopefully, maybe to seeing you this fall at the induction ceremony.
I'm planning on it.
Great, thanks. The next member of the class is Carve Thompson. So Margaret and Carve's sister is with us, Marilyn, tonight. I don't think his daughter Linda was able to join, but if you all will pop back in, we'll introduce you to the group as we talk a little bit about Carve. And niece, Deanne Hayes, is with Margaret, I think. We didn't lose Margaret, did we? I can still see the slate. So Margaret and Deanne, if you're with us, go ahead and pop your camera back on. Well, let's hope they're getting that worked out while I tell you a little bit about Carve. I'm not sure, and a lot of you on this call knew him, that there are enough labels to describe Carve Thompson. Army veteran, businessman, pharmacist, innovator, broadcaster, community catalyst, mentor, husband, brother, father, grandfather. I remember the first time I met Carve Thompson in 1976, and the person who introduced him to me introduced him as Mr. Faith, an apt title, for Carve was truly the go-to guy in his beloved hometown of Faith, South Dakota for virtually every important project. While a pharmacist by training, Carve had bought his father's business. He also was a businessman, and with Margaret, they expanded Thompson Drug to 7 stores across the region. But Carve also organized and was the president of the Faith County Development Corporation, which became the vehicle for several major projects, including the Prairie Oasis Mall, the Prairie Vista Inn Motel, the Prairie View Apartment Complex, and the Faith Swimming Pool. He served his state in multiple decades, being appointed by 6 different governors to a variety of boards and state commissions. He also had a legislative appointment. Carve passed away just 11 months ago, but he left an indelible mark on his city and his state. And we are so glad, Margaret and Marilyn and Deanne, that you're with us tonight. And Marilyn, would you share your thoughts about Carve and his legacy? Marilyn and Margaret, both of you who'd ever like to start.
Well, I miss my brother terribly. He always made you feel better. Whenever you got around Carve, he'd have something nice to say about you or something that just lifted your spirits. And I'd like to quote my dad, who Carve lived by his philosophy. He says, whatever you do, live your life in a way that you leave the world a little better than you came into it. And Carve always said that was his philosophy, and he really did do that. Besides being a great brother and a close family member, I got to live vicariously through all the things he did and attend things, including the Hall of Fame celebration. And I have to say that without Margaret, I'm not sure where Carve would have been, because she was his love, his confidant, his consultant through any projects he started. So I hope she's on and can hear that, because she certainly stood side by side through all of his endeavors.
Thank you, Marilyn, and she is on. Margaret, do you have some thoughts you'd like to share about Carve?
Sure, I would, and thanks, Marilyn, for that. And I am with my sister Betsy and her daughter Deanne Hayes. Betsy and Keith Lehman were also at the induction 10 years ago when we celebrated pretty good. Everything you said about Carve is true. Can anybody top that? No, I just want to tell you that I don't know if the people that nominated him, he had 4 nominations, were ever really thanked. And I'm going to just mention their names. Dave and Eldora Fishbach at that time were ranchers at Faith and kind of have retired to Rapid City. Marilyn lives in Arizona. Ben Stoik from Oak Ridge was a buddy in the state fair, big commissioner with Carve. And let's see who's the other one. Let's see, I thought I had it memorized, but I took him out of line. Oh, I know, Morris Gustafson, he also was from Faith at that time. He's retired and now he lives in Rapid City. So I really appreciate those people for going through all the trouble they did to make the nominations. Carve and I moved to Omaha about 7 years ago to be near Linda. And then in February, I moved to Colorado to be near my sister and her family. So I've made quite a few moves the last few years. When Carve got sick, it was in August. He got sick and he just kind of couldn't walk very well. He slept a lot and we just kept thinking, wonder what all this is. And we moved into an assisted living for him. And he was there 1 week and that was it. He went to the hospital and never came home. But he got a chance to talk to all of his grandkids, and Marilyn came, Pat and Joy from Wisconsin came, Ben Joy from Oak came and told us all a lot of stuff. And, so that all worked out very well. And if anybody died a beautiful death, Carve did. I think he and the Lord had that all figured out before we knew anything about it. So I was wondering about the AAA personalities of God and Carve. Now, when he got up there, he's kind of pragmatic, like Marilyn. I wonder if people said, now, is this really it? Or is there more? So there was always more for Carve. If he had one story, he thought we should have two. And he had thought if we had one of these, maybe we should have two. And that's the way he was driven all his life to do those kind of things. And I miss him terribly, of course. But the funny parts of him being gone, I told him, now, if you can get in contact with me, please do it. I said, I suppose there's no chance you could throw popcorn down. He said, probably not. But the other day in my bathroom, I was brushing my teeth and the shower turned on. And I just said, thanks, Carve. And my door lock wouldn't work. That was him. He turned the color of a bus from white to yellow. That was another sign. So I've had plenty of them there. So I know where he is. And our church says, and may you rest in peace. No rest there. And our daughter's there, and I imagine he and Gail are going full blessed. So, and thank you for having me on. I enjoyed it a lot.
It's so good to see you, Margaret. And as you were talking, all I could think of is that I will rest easier tonight, knowing Carve Thompson is probably getting God better organized. so thank you.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for being with us. And now we're going to flip to the 15-year anniversary class. And we have one representative from the class from 2007, and that's Bill Walsh of Deadwood. Bill, if you'll flip your camera back on while I tell the rest of the group a little bit about you. Like many people in the Hall of Fame, Bill's life has a common theme, but his is a bit more varied than most. The theme is that of living in service to community and to others, but he took a very circuitous path. Bill was born in Mitchell, and he was ordained a Catholic priest and served 5 parishes over the next 11 years. During those years, he also co-chaired the Prison Reform Committee and was appointed to the South Dakota Civil Rights Committee. Bill opted to resign from the priesthood in 1976 and then moved into working in social services as the coordinator of social services for the Black Hills and later as a director at West River Mental Health Services. In 1980, there was another career pivot for Bill. He bought the historic Franklin Hotel in Deadwood and became passionate about restoring Deadwood to its Old West appearance and attitude, frankly. And he served as one of the leaders to restore legalized gaming in Deadwood. Today, Bill continues his service work and his passionate work for tourism, but he's also working in several other segments, and a couple that I'd like to note tonight. He has served as South Dakota State Democratic National Committeeman, and he also helped found the Black Hills Forum and Press Club, something I discovered when I moved back and have really enjoyed. It's a lunchtime gathering of business and media leaders with a goal of fostering civic discourse on important issues affecting the state. Bill, welcome back to the Hall on your 15-year anniversary, and tell us if I've missed anything or anything you'd like to augment.
Well, thanks, Marcy. And it's, it's a thrill to see you and Lori, and congratulations, Lori, on becoming the new executive, and to hear the stories of so many people. And I know that Gene Lebrun forgot to tell everybody that he was a classmate of mine at St. John's, which was probably the most important thing he could have said, and Mary Olinger. Mary, I don't think had ever been out of the United States, and she came on a tour with us over to Scotland and Ireland. And we were so happy that when she arrived, because we didn't know whether or not she'd get out of that airport in DC or not. But thank you. It's a great life. And I'm a grandfather of a 3-year-old, and we're either in Denver or here in South Dakota. And that's really, to be a grandfather is really sort of a miracle for me. But, it was a great honor to be a part of that class 15 years ago with Sherwin Linton and Sparky Anderson and Denny Sanford and Lieutenant Governor Carol Hillard and so many other people. It was just a great celebration. Father Jimmy Doyle, who just passed away this year. And, you know, it's been fun to work in South Dakota. I love the people. I love the area. And I've been with the Ellsworth Air Force Base for 40 years, mentoring young airmen and young air women. And, you know, they're way far ahead of the curve. I spent 20 years in boot camp and officers training camp and in the seminary and in the priesthood for 20 years. And I got an honorable discharge. I got out. So many young people now are doing that in the sense they're taking on a career for 20 years. They go on to another career for 20 years and another career for 20 years after that. And I teach my young airmen and women that all the time, that, you know, this is their first career maybe. And this Saturday, as we go to the first thing we did with the historic money in Deadwood was restore the rodeo grounds. And this is our 100th anniversary and it's going to be big. And I just talked to Colonel Spanier. He's going to be out there as the B-1 flies over and all the horses are going to get excited and run all over Deadwood, but who the hell cares? You know, it's a celebration. It's a celebration. And, you know, quite honestly, Marnie, I just retired from Dakota Travel after 33 years. Last November was our last trip to Ireland. I got COVID, so I didn't go, but Joe led the group over to Ireland. I think this was our 16th tour, and it's been fun to lead people all over the world and to especially to come back to South Dakota, because it's I keep telling Jesus, unless you got something better than the Black Hills, just leave me here, you know. and with the gambling, you know, I appeared before the ministers in Sioux Falls and in Rapid City as we worked hard to legalize gaming to restore Deadwood. And I told all the ministers, don't preach against this on Sunday, because this is just a step above Catholic bingo. So, you know, last November, Marcy, I got my last paycheck, and I had gotten a paycheck for 70 years. And the only other guy that's probably older than I on this thing is Al Kurtenbach from Parkston, who's probably gotten money for over 70 years. But I've loved every job. I've loved every group of people, whether it be priests or printers or whatnot that I worked with. And so it's been a great life. And you know, we're going to continue to serve the people of South Dakota in any way that we can. And thank you, Marcy, for helping us on the
Sure.
South Dakota Black Hills Press Club and Forum. It's a great exercise in democracy. The whole point of that thing is to bring people together. Republicans, Democrats, independents, let's cut the division. We're not in a civil war. You know, we love America. We love South Dakota. Let's talk about the issues and respect one another and break bread with one another. And so that's a part of my life. And then Cashel, my grandson, he and my wife take up the other part with my daughter. So thank you very much for the induction, and let's make the Hall of Fame continue to be alive.
Great. Bill, thank you so much. And it's been so great to reconnect with you coming back for me. So thanks again. And speaking of Al Kurtenbach, who you mentioned, Al, you are up next as a representative of our 30-year alumni class, the class of 1992. So while Al is hooking up, I'll start telling you a little bit about him. I mean, of course, most of you know Al Kurtenbach of Brookings. The story that I love is that, as thinking about the visual image, says of the seconds ticking down in the Miracle on Ice game when the USA hockey team upset the USSR in Lake Placid. What I did not know at the time is as those scoreboard seconds ticked down, they did so on a scoreboard designed by Daktronics, Al Kurtenbach's company. Daktronics began in 1969 When Al and Dwayne Sander, another former Hall of Fame board member and another inductee, they were then professors of electrical engineering at South Dakota State University, and they saw a need to give engineering graduates an opportunity to work in the state. A year from their company's inception, Daktronics installed its first product, an electronic voting system in the state of Utah. Let's not talk about voting systems today because the company segued then into scoreboards, and Kurtenbach and Daktronics were put on the map with the design and manufacture of a wrestling scoreboard that revolutionized that sport with essential timing and scoring information right at Matt's side. Daktronic products are now far more than scoreboards, and this is my phrase, not theirs. They are an immersive, expansive consumer experience, bringing the spectator way closer to the event than they ever could have imagined. Daktronics is a mega million-dollar business with products in countless major arenas and in use at hallmark events like the Olympics and in the PGA. Both businesses and education entities have honored Kurtenbach countless times with awards, but as importantly, he is known as a great role model and a mentor for his management team and his employees. Dr. Kurtenbach, welcome back to the Hall of Fame. It's good to see you again. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your life now and how your role has changed with the company as the years have passed.
Well, thank you very much, Marcy. And being you mentioned voting systems, I think it's appropriate to point out that the Speaker of the House in South Dakota, when we installed our voting system there, was Gene Lebrun. And so he got a chance to, I got a chance to meet him then, and he got a chance to work with Daktronics. But I've been blessed in life. You know, I've had pretty good health, and I've been blessed to be able to live a long life and stay active. And that's been great. We have 5 children. We're kind of an engineering family. 4 of our 5 children are engineers, 2 male and 2 female. And the 5th one married an engineer. So we tell her she redeemed herself. We're also very advocate women's basketball fans. And because our youngest daughter was a pretty good basketball player and played for state. And so we enjoy that. And I just want to comment that this past March was just wonderful for us here in Brookings, because we had 6 women's national invitational tournament games here in Brookings. We're fortunate to win all of them. I told John Thune on the way out of the championship game that we had our scoreboards at both the women's NIT and the men's NIT. You know, one was in Brookings and the other in New York City. And so I thought we were on pretty even keel that way. It's been great. In terms of large displays, I was just reading one of our press releases today, and we booked an order for putting a big display out in the new basketball arena in Inglewood, California, where the Ballmer's team plays. Ballmer, the ex-CEO of Microsoft, and they're putting in, this blows my mind, about 88/10 of an acre of display. And it's all coming from South Dakota. So I think that's just a great deal. Actually, I'm also proud that 3 of our children are involved with Daktronics. Our son Reese is CEO, and our daughter Carla is secretary and head of personnel. And our son Matt is the head of manufacturing for all of our manufacturing operations. So that puffs up my chest a little bit. Really, though, what I've been an advocate for in South Dakota is entrepreneurship. My long-term vision was to see the number of, well, as I say, I like the outflow of South Dakota college graduates, the net outflow to go to zero. And we haven't quite gotten there yet, but we're far too generous in South Dakota. We give our greatest asset away. And I'm pleased that the Hall of Fame is honoring more South Dakota citizens these days instead of former citizens. And so that makes me quite happy. But personally now, we're kind of semi-retired. I still work primarily in this area of my advocation, and I've been on the advisory committees of both engineering colleges for a number of years, and just advocating for us to retain our engineering talent here, which we can do. South Dakota needs to make a little bit of a change. We have to understand that investment in engineering, and not just engineering, but in education, is in fact an investment. And too many of us still call it an expense. And it's really, I just reread this book by Ted Schultz. I don't know if you've heard of Ted Schultz or not, but Ted is deceased now. He was born in 1902, and he's one of the only 2 former South Dakotans or current South Dakotas, which are none, that are winners of the Nobel Prize. And his book that helped him, win that prize was titled Investing in Education. And so I think we should, work on that a little bit even today. But we enjoy South Dakota. We, of course, could live any place in the world, but we like South Dakota. Our primary home is in rural Brookings. We're about down on the Sioux River, about 8 miles south of Brookings. And we have a conservation farm there. I actually get out of my tractor once in a while and do a little planting and mowing. And that's also very enjoyable, having grown up on a farm. And then our second home is out in Spearfish Canyon. My wife and I met in Rapid City when I was a student there, and she was also a student at the School of Business. And so our courtship was driving around the hills and looking at the beauty. And so we are pleased that we were able to find a cabin available in Spearfish Canyon. And we try to get out there at least one weekend a month. And so we drive across the state. And this past spring, the state was beautiful. And with the little rain that we've been getting recently, I think it's going to be beautiful this fall as well. We have mentioned that we're an engineering family. We have 11 grandchildren. 5 of them are graduate engineers. 3 young ladies and 2 young men. And so we're continuing that tradition. Now we have our first great-grandchild, but he's only 2, so I don't make any predictions at all for him. But overall, life has been great. I had to wear many different hats, and my education didn't stop when I finished college. I had to learn business and learn marketing, and had a chance to travel quite a bit of the world, most always working. But you mentioned Dwayne Sander. Dwayne and his wife Phyllis, who just passed away in the last year. She had a battle with Alzheimer's, unfortunately. But back in the 80s and early 90s, we would take what we call founders trips. And one trip that we really liked was to go to the Olympics for the pre-Olympics. We would go to the pre-Olympic games. The crowds weren't there, so we had all the venues with no crowding. One of my wife just mentioned the other day that one of our really great experiences was when at Lillehammer we went to the top of the ski jump. We were quite happy that we didn't have to go down that route. But so we've had a chance to get around and see interesting things and be involved in interesting experiences. And so I'm looking forward to going out to Inglewood to that new arena. It won't be finished until 24, but I'm planning to live that long, and I'm planning to go out there and see the display out there, 38,000 square feet of display surface, so that's just 0.8 of an acre. Never in my life did I ever dream we would be making displays that large. So that's quite, a compliment. And we built Daktronics based on basically South Dakota talent. We found when I was teaching, I found that we had such talented young people, and we didn't have a really strong effort at the state level to retain them. And I just saw that, not all of them wanted to leave. Yeah, some wanted to leave, but not all. Matter of fact, quite a few wanted to stay. And so by creating an opportunity for them, they repaid me wonderfully. And I just would like to see the state take a greater interest in our young people and in education, because that's what we do here in the United States. We're fortunate to have an educated population, and so we're able to do great things. And I just want us to continue that. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Al, for all you've done for the state. I'm sure as many on this Zoom have had the opportunity to go through Daktronics, and I was so struck by the energy and positive attitude of your employees. You just feel better walking. When you come in the door, you just sense that and suck up that energy and get it when you walk out. So thank you for everything you've done for the state. And good to see you tonight. So I'm going to move on now to the 35-year reunion class, the class of 1987. And we have 2 representatives tonight, and we'll start with Adeline Gnurk. She is represented by her son, Dr. Paul Gnurk, And granddaughter Katie Adams was going to join us. I don't know if she was able to join us. So Paul, if you want to go ahead and turn back on, and if Katie is here, please join us as well while I tell you a little bit about Adeline. She was born in 1914 in Minneapolis, but when she was only 4, her parents and 4 siblings moved to Herrick, South Dakota, and shortly thereafter, actually in the spring, to Burke, South Dakota, where they stayed. Adeline graduated as valedictorian from the class of 1933 at Burke High School. She attended Norfolk Business College, and she worked for the Feed, Seed, and Loan Office, and then for a local lawyer. She knew and she persevered through the hardships of the Great Depression, through drought, dirt storms, and grasshopper plagues, which visited South Dakota in the 30s. She began seriously writing in 1973, shortly after her 4th and youngest son was married. She wrote 8 historical books for the Gregory and Charles Mix County Historical Societies, with titles like Saga of the Ponca Land, Saga of the Sully Flats, and the Capital City Saga. She captured detail and information about those areas that may have been otherwise lost to history. For those accomplishments, Mrs. Gnurk was honored by Dakota State University, Black Hills State University, the Dakota State History Conference, and received many other awards, including being given the Governor's Award by Governor Mickelson. Adeline Gnurk died in 1998 at the age of 83, and this year she will be joined in the Hall of Fame by her son, Dr. Paul Gnurk. Paul, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share about your mom or stories you could tell us about her tonight?
Well, one thing you did leave out sort of important, that my mother was a daughter of 2 immigrants from Norway, which came over in the early 1900s in Minneapolis. And of course, I knew her parents quite well over the years because they visited and they lived out in that particular area. My mother decided to write books after her 4 sons basically had left home and were in college or had graduated from college. And she started on the books for Gregory County. And the books for Gregory County, as Marcy was telling you, were very detailed in the sense that my father, Freddie, and my mother would go to the individual, to families, and she would get the history all the way back to the people that immigrated from Europe, different parts of Europe, to Gregory County. And so these books had a really total picture of the people that came into Gregory County from the different countries in Europe. She finished those books and then was asked by the people in across the river in Charles Mix County to do the same thing. And she wrote, I think, 3 or 4 books in Charles Mix County, and the same thing, met all these people and actually made recordings, which my daughter, my brother's wife has all this information in Burke down there, but she, my father and them interviewed many people, and she created all these books. And so the books have been in great demand. And during my mother's lifetime, she either gave away or sold something like 10,000 volumes of these books around the country. And she was very strong, and she was very much supportive of us boys going on to college and doing well in life. And it was not so much what you were going to study, you were going to go to college to get a degree. And it was the same with my father's parents, the same thing. She was a great mother. Kate, are you on the line? Kate, or Kate Adams? She must not be on
Yeah,
here.
I don't see her, Paul.
Okay. Anyway, Adeline Sylvia Gnurk, well-known, well-standing. Her and Freddie and Adeline did a lot of things in Gregory County. They basically started the function in August for the reunion for the different classes from Burke High School, and that's gone on forever. Were involved the years in which they were alive. Very much strong in the community, very well known. When I was working overseas and Sweden and different parts of the world, I would send a postcard back to my folks, to Freddie and Adeline, and I'd address it just a regular postcard, say Freddie and Adeline, Burke, South Dakota, USA. That's all I put down, and it was always delivered to them. And I didn't need a secondary address, street address, or anything else. They were very well known in the community. So it was great. I don't know what else I can say. It was great growing up with them, and very instructive, and they were very open and out, and gave us boys a lot of rein, and it was good. Thank you all thank you for Marcy for including her in the thinking today.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And I can only sit here, and as I was writing her biography, I could only imagine how proud she'd be to know that you're going to join her in that Hall of Fame in the fall. So
Oh, wait.
Thank you.
I think so. So thanks, Paul. And our next inductee, our final inductee tonight in the class of the 35 reunion class is artist Dale Lamphere. Dale, if you'll pop on. As I was writing this, I was thinking that it's really extraordinary to me to consider that when you, Dale, were inducted into the Hall of Fame 35 years ago, you had not yet been named South Dakota's Artist Laureate. That had been a position that was vacant since the death of Oscar Howe. You had not yet created and constructed Dignity, now an iconic sculpture overlooking the river near Chamberlain. So I went back to look at your initial induction material, and it talks about your evolution as an artist from large landscape sculptures to smaller forms that could be produced in shorter periods of time. It notes that your statue of an Oglala Sioux entitled Tall Grass Walker that won the overall Best of Show at the Boys Club Western Art Show and Auction in 1983 was really a turning point in your career when you received the Anna Hyatt Huntington Memorial Award, that not for Tall Grass Walker, but for Young Long Soldier sculpture. Dale Lamphere's work now of over 60 major public commissions is featured from the Basilica of the National Shrine in Washington, D.C., to the Eisenhower Medical Center and the city of Burbank in California. Other creations have been placed in Chicago, Kansas City, Colorado Springs, Omaha, Snowmass, and Dallas. And when I moved back to South Dakota 4 years ago and stopped and saw Dignity, I just Googled best places to visit in South Dakota. I don't know what struck me to do that. And at that point in time, Dignity ranked number 5 on Google's list of things to visit in South Dakota, which is extraordinary to me when you consider those other little attractions we have like Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse and places like that. So Dale, congratulations. You must have been 12 when you went into the Hall of Fame. And would you talk a little bit about what keeps you busy these days?
Okay, well, thank you, Marcy. And I was actually 40 when I was inducted into the Hall of Fame, but it's really an honor to be here and included in this. I mean, I have to explain something that the Hall of Fame, when they were in that period of time, every year they would induct an artist into the Hall of Fame. And so they were starting to run out of artists. I mean, there are only so many of them at that point in time back in the 80s here in South Dakota. And finally, it was my turn. But I've watched you folks and heard your stories, and I am in august company, and I am honored and humbled to be so. You have all been people of extraordinary accomplishment, and there are so many of you that I have had the good fortune to know personally and to become friends with. I think Bill Walsh and Mary and Jean Lebrun and Al, and I wanted to say too that my first commission that I got when I had just graduated from college was from Carve Thompson, of all people. He owned the Frontier Drug up in Deadwood and wanted it to be remodeled. And I was young and ambitious, and of course grew up on a ranch and knew how to make things. And I remodeled the Frontier Drug up in Deadwood for Carve. So that's a real fond memory to me. My career has been just, I have to say, extraordinary. I had no idea when I first started. I mean, I had never really visited museums when I was a young man, and I had an experience when I was attending the University of Wyoming that really transformed my life. And that was, I got a scholarship to go on a program called University of the Seven Seas, still exists today, now called Semester at Sea. And at that point, we went around the world on an old boat that had been converted many times. And we visited 18 different countries, 23 different ports, took 6 months, wound up left in LA in January, wound up in New York in June. And of course, I visited all the museums all around these various port cities that were major cities and universities. And I saw how the objects in the museums told me about the cultures that we visited. And I saw that it was a really important thing to create these icons of cultural importance. And I decided to do that and came back and just didn't look back. I always joke that I seem to have a poor sense of consequences. So whenever an opportunity comes up, well, I raise my hand, and often I'm in over my head. So I pay attention and consult experts and do a learning curve that allows me to go ahead and complete a project. One of the things I wanted to share with you was when I was inducted back in '87, I met someone that really made a difference in my life. And it was a very serendipitous circumstance. I met VJ Scott. And as some of you no doubt know, he was chairman of Mutual of Omaha. And he had taken the company from this little regional company to an international notoriety. And it was basically through the Wild Kingdom program with Marlon Perkins. I know all of you know about that. But VJ had on his board of directors Dolores Hope. He wanted a portrait done of Bob and Dolores together. I did that. The Hopes were pleased with it. Mrs. Hope commissioned me, and I worked for 3 years on the project that went into the Basilica of the National Shrine. And through that, I met other people, and my life has just been a wonderful serendipitous circumstance where one thing has led to another. So it's been really exciting for me, and I mean, I've had the opportunity to meet some really extraordinary people that I would otherwise have never had any opportunity to become acquainted with. And basically through my ability to do portraits. And I had no idea that I had any talent. I just like to work hard and like to make things. And that has been a driving force all along. So at this point in my life, I've been at my particular career. I know, Bill, you mentioned 20-year periods. Well, I'm 53 years into this one career, but of course I've changed clients many, many times over that period. But it's been a thrill. It really has, and I feel so fortunate. My family is still close. I have several grandchildren and even great grandchildren. I mean, all it takes is a few bad decisions of a few family members, and then you wind up with great grandkids. But it's a delight. It really is. One of the other things that has been a real influence, and I mean, there have been so many people that have mentored me and been examples for me and inspired me to do better and be more productive and more involved in life. And one was certainly George S. Mickelson. It was our centennial year, and I had the opportunity to do the works there in the Capitol Rotunda. I did have to replace, I believe it was Old Granddad or Jack Daniels. I can't remember which. There was a decanter in one of the things, and I always felt badly that the gentleman that that set aside the school and public school lands. He was moved down the hall so that we could do these 4 works that are examples of qualities our legislators possess. And that's vision, courage, wisdom, and integrity. And we certainly hope that all of our legislative body possesses those things. So I meant them as inspirations. So one other thing that George Mickelson did that really influenced me and inspired me is he declared the year of reconciliation. I grew up on a ranch near Bear Butte, always had Native friends, could never understand why we don't recognize that our diversity is a strength, and that until we embrace that diversity and turn it have it be a good thing, we'll never reach the point of development that we should as a state. And I think that's underway. There's certainly increasing understanding and recognition of the Native nations that live here in South Dakota. That led me to do something like Dignity, which I am very honored and pleased to have had the chance to do. It was a tremendous opportunity. I have to admit that I go there now and I look at it and I look up at it and I wonder, how in the world did we do that? And it makes me think back about the people that helped me. I really want to acknowledge all of the wonderful people that I've worked with over time. I mean, I can't do those things myself. And I've been really fortunate to always be able to put together a good team. So that's kind of my story. I'm all of you newer inductees, you young folks out there. I'm honored to be in your presence. Thank you.
Dale, thank you so much. And it's really extraordinary to think, when you think about those grandchildren and great-grandchildren, that they will forever go by that and say, my grandpa did that. My grandpa did that. What an honor. So thank you. And I will quickly say it is such an honor to be with you. And every time I do this, it makes me prouder to be a board member of the South Dakota Hall of Fame. And I want to turn this over now to Lori Beckvar, who mentioned earlier, our executive of 8 years, Greta Chapman, retired in May. And those are always opportunities, yet time of fear for board of directors. We thought, who will we get? We couldn't be more pleased at our new executive director, Lori Beckvar. And in the 3 months she's been here, she's brought organization, she's brought vision, she's brought energy. And I'd just like her to tell you a little bit about what the Hall of Fame is up to, and then we'll have some time for questions if any of you have any. Lori, go ahead.
Thank you, Marcy. It's such a pleasure being here with all of you amazing people. Thank you for sharing the wisdom. I've been taking notes about things that you're saying, so it's just been wonderful. So as Marcy said, I've been on the job just shy of 3 months, and I just love it. I was so excited to join the Hall of Fame for many reasons, but mostly because I would be involved in recognizing and preserving this rich South Dakota history and the distinctive stories of our inductees, such as you. So, I'm an old academician. I was a chief academic officer at Presentation College and Mount Marty College and a dean at USD, and I did my research. And I found that no other organization does what the South Dakota Hall of Fame does. And in preserving the history and the legacies of people who have shaped our state, it's so critical and so very important. And so I wanted to spend my life now doing this work. My roots in South Dakota are deep. My family, Lorenz and Katharina Kubal, came to Dakota Territory from a small Czech community called České Budějovice in South Bohemia. And those Czech pioneers moved to areas around Tabor, South Dakota, in search of a better life. And they found a better life there. And I too now am the beneficiary of that. So my work now includes fulfilling the mission of the South Dakota Hall of Fame. I want to talk a little bit about that mission and how we fulfill it. So Lori, can you load up the PowerPoint? Just a brief PowerPoint here, folks. So the mission of the South Dakota Hall of Fame is to champion a culture of excellence in South Dakota. What a profound mission and what profound work. So let me tell you how we currently fulfill that mission. We have 5 programs. We call them also 5 lanes of service. And so the first one that I'll talk about is acts of excellence. So not everybody gets into the Hall of Fame, but nearly everyone can do something to make a difference in their community. And Acts of Excellence started about 4 years ago. This program was funded by Sanford Health, and it collects and celebrates those single difference-making moments. And now we have over 145 acts in our digital directory available to the public in hopes of inspiring others to do similar good works. So Acts of Excellence is one of the ways that we fulfill the mission. Lori, the next program is our honor ceremony, and you were all a part of this. You're very familiar with the honor ceremony. And each year we induct up to 10 people into the South Dakota Hall of Fame. In 2022, we were coming out of the COVID environment, and we inducted a 2021 class in May. And now we're going to induct the 2022 class in September. We hope that our anniversary inductees can join us there. We're going to have a special recognition of anniversary inductees on Saturday, September 9th, from 2 to 3 p.m. So all of that information is online on our website, but we hope that you can join us. So the honor ceremony, the second program. Third program is called the Legacy of Achievements. And every one of our inductees, including you, are a part of the Legacy of Achievement program. So once you become into the Hall of Fame, you are a partner with us in building your legacy. And how do you do that? Basically, if you have video information, an article, you simply contact us at the Hall of Fame and we will upload it to your legacy page. So if you want to know what a legacy page looks like, they're all on our website. And it's really fascinating to see what our inductees have done since they've been inducted and since the honor ceremony. So the legacy continues. So the Legacy of Achievements program. One of the programs that I'm really looking forward to getting to learn more about is Legends in Learning, because my background, of course, is education. And this is a free digital program using select inductee stories to teach South Dakota history in grades K through 12. We work with teachers to adapt those stories and embed them into the curriculum in multiple ways. And so the Legends in Learning has been used by thousands of South Dakota, in thousands of South Dakota classrooms. And we envision much more. And it is the way that we inspire youth. It's the way that the Hall of Fame inspires youth and impacts their future. The last program that we have is our Visitor and Education Center in Chamberlain. We are a statewide organization, but our presence through the Hall of Fame is in Chamberlain, and that's our bricks and mortar. And if you, I'm sure you visited, I'm sure you've been there, you're featured there, but it's changing. We have some new exhibits coming in, and so please stop in and see all that's new with the Visitor and Education Center. So 5 programs fulfilling this robust mission, 5 lanes of service. Marcy, back to you.
Lori, thank you. I appreciate that. So let me just throw the floor open. Are there any questions that any of you have about activities at the hall or for Lori, or anything we can answer for you? Jean, go ahead.
I just have a story on Kurtenbach. Shortly after I was speaker, after I became involved in uniform laws, I had a good friend from California, Brian Gregory. Brian was the attorney for the California Assembly. They had installed electronic voting machine. were having a problem with it. So I gave Al a call and the problem was fixed. So thank you, Al, very, very much. There's Marcy.
Thank you, Jean. And you're all welcome. Flip your cameras. Go ahead and flip your cameras back on. We can all talk here as a group. Anybody else with any questions or comments or suggestions for the hall? Well, hearing none, I'll thank you again for being here. And if anything occurs to you, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lori Beckvar or Lori Platzer. I will tell you in the coming days, we'll send you an email with a link to this program if you'd like to show it to anybody else. We'll also have Lori Platzer and Lori Beckvar's contact information, particularly if you want to review yours or your family member's legacy page and do any updates, and we can help you with that. And the other thing, I think it's kind of like part of my job description is the board chair. I always want to remind people that while we are the official state Hall of Fame, we get no economic support from the state whatsoever and rely solely on contributions to fund the Hall of Fame, the digital programs, and the maintenance of all of your legacy material. So to the extent that any of you would consider us in your charitable planning, we are grateful for that and we appreciate that. And if you'd like any additional information, we're happy to give it to you. So I just want to say a very sincere thank you for all you have done to make South Dakota the very special place it is that we all love. It's just an honor to spend time with you. It's awesome to consider your accomplishments, and we hope we'll see some of you in September. So thanks and good night.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.